This today we have the chance to get to know much better a promising new startup. We have Bruce with us. Hello, Bruce. Good afternoon for me. Good morning for you.
Yeah. Hey, good morning, Javier. Nice to meet you.
The first thing I would like to ask you is to share with us your background. It's always interesting to know better those the entrepreneurs why they have decided to all what has happened before they have decided to run this
Yeah.
amazing this.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I took a kind of a crookedy path to get where I am. Much different than many people. I instead of doing the traditional college route, I ran off to Europe and I skied for years, and then I moved to Australia and I mined opals out in the bush, and I had all kinds of wacky jobs. But I had also in 1983 opened a travel management company in Palo Alto, California, and I had that for about 13 years. And I met a guy who we became good friends, and he was an early internet pioneer, really. And he wrote some of the very first programming for conducting commerce on the internet. And he basically came to me one day and said, "Hey, let's put your travel agency on the web." And I said, "Hey, that sounds great. What's the web?" It was like, no, it was late 1994,
Yeah.
right? Nobody knew what the web was, unless you were in academia or the government using it for a communication channel. And that first effort to put that travel agency on the web ended up becoming a company called GetThere, which we built the first the first kind of web-based connection to an airline reservation system. So we're actually credited in the Smithsonian with having built and kind of invented the ability to book a reservation on the internet. And in fact, I think that the first one was like a little San Jose to Las Vegas trip that we booked on a little server in his living room, and it worked, and it kind of launched an entire industry. So we had a really amazing run with that company. We really kind of launched it in 1995. We had an IPO in 1999, and then in 2000 we were acquired by Sabre in a big. And you remember in 2000, that was a tough time to be an internet entrepreneur, right? But Sabre acquired us for almost $800 million in cash, and we were young. By the time we were sold, we only owned this much of it. But
Hello, Annette.
There's Annette. Hey.
Good morning. Sorry, guys.
No problem.
Bruce is sharing with us a very interesting story about the success of GetThere and the acquisition by Sabre.
Yeah. So they came in, and we had been competing against each other for 4 or 5 years, and Sabre was a big machine. It's like steering a big ship, right? It takes a long time to turn, long time to stop. And we were young and very agile. And at one point they said, "Oh, let's just buy these guys," because we're not competing very well. So that was the end of that. And in 2000, I was able to kind of retire early, as well as my partner, Dan. At the time, the company had 500 people, so it had grown to a substantial organization. Still a small company by today's standards, but and then I was kind of happily doing my own thing for a long time, getting reacquainted with my family, getting to know the kids again.
Yeah.
And Dan, who was my founding partner, Dan Whaley, and GetThere, he came to me about 3 years ago and said, "Hey, I've been working with this guy. It's a really cool piece of tech. I think it's time that you came in and take a look at it." And that's what I did. I joined as an advisor to BTP, helped raise a little capital, put some fuel in the tank to keep the company going. And the more I became involved, the more interesting it became. And then I think it was November of 2020, the board of BTP came to me and said, "Hey, we'd like you to take the reins of the company and run with this thing." And so the first thing I did was ask my wife. So I was like, "Hey, we've done the startup together, right? I forgot who you were for 5 years, so I'm not sure, we want to do that again." But it's such a cool company and such good tech that and such a great opportunity that I decided to jump back in full time, and whew, that's where we are. It's
So
been
it was again Dan, the one who teach you and was the one who made you come back to the old days.
I'll never forgive him.
So,
Yeah, but yeah, no, and what's really fun is that Dan and I remain close friends over the 20 years of since we left GetThere, and it's funny. It's almost like we never quit working together. We're very much like chocolate and peanut butter. We both do different things, but we go together really well, and it's been really fun to kind of reconnect on that level, like in a working environment. And then the smartest thing I did, so I'm the CEO, right? I'm here. My job is to make sure that we make payroll and that I hire really smart people. That's it.
that's not easy.
Right. That's kind of that's what I do. And Annette it took me about 8 months to get Annette to come over to our company, but she's our CRO. She's responsible for all sales and revenue and marketing in the company, and the best, probably the smartest thing I've done since taking over the company. Well, listen, I mean, you work your ass off, and it is, startups, right? There's a lot to do all day, every day, and everybody wears a bunch of hats, and I don't think anybody wears any more hats than Annette does in our company. So I'm super fortunate to have her, and the team is really, really coming together. I think we have 8 people now, so still small, but 8 people that are going 100 miles an hour is, that's better than 500 who are just lollygagging along. So anyway.
Yeah, that's right. You mentioned that you started in Palo Alto. You are still based in Palo Alto or no?
No, we're based in La Quinta, California, which is down by Palm Springs.
Yeah, very
Yeah,
nice area. In the
yeah,
south.
yeah, it's a little warmer than Palo
Yeah,
Alto.
right.
A lot warmer, but we we migrated south 5 or 6 years ago, and we lived actually, my wife and I lived at the beach by Santa Cruz, and she had said, "You've had it your way for 20 years. I'm cold. I want to go I want to go someplace warm." That's how we ended up down there. But that's where the company's headquartered. But we're really, I mean, it's a modern company, right? We're all remote. We have Annette's in Omaha. I have my VP of engineering's in Florida. I have another, technical account management in Florida. We have Portland, Toronto, New Orleans. Just all over the map. And I mean, that has its own unique challenges, right? Having a completely remote team, because I'm used to walking into the office and seeing everybody and saying, "How we doing today? Everybody in the conference room, let's have a sit down and a chat." And, I guess really the only difference is we do it in 2 dimensions now on Zoom versus, 3-dimensional sitting down in a conference room with a live person. So, it's amazing how productive and kind of connected people can stay with today's technology versus 20 years ago. So.
So especially you have the right people on board.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to have self-starters, people that are motivated. You have to have people that are kind of committed and can work without somebody looking over their shoulder. So part of your hiring, part of your kind of vetting the people is making sure that they're that kind of person, because not everybody can do that, right? It's some people have to be in an office environment, or they just don't produce the way you would want them to. So we spend a lot of time making sure that the people that we do hire are good self-starter, self-motivated, and able to work remotely, because it's critical today.
That's for sure. So,
Yeah.
Annette, it's your turn to share with us your background and tell us why you have decided to be part of this project.
Yes, it's a pleasure to meet you. And again, my apologies. My prospecting was running over, which is part of my game, right? Bruce never gets angry at me when I'm actually running late because I'm talking to customers.
Absolutely not.
Of course, customers are always the first.
Customer first.
They are. So Javier, I am on year 36 in business travel, and I'm so proud of that number. I don't shy away from it because I like to say I've sat at all sides of the table in our ecosystem. So I've been a buyer, I've sold it, I've built it, I've supported it, right? Everything around travel technology. Most of that time, 17 years, was spent in American Express Global Business Travel, managing the largest technology companies, right? Again, with my passion of travel and tech, it was a perfect fit. So I managed customers like Microsoft and Intel, but I also had really fun customers, General Mills, Target stores. So I really cut my teeth on the customer aspect of our world.
Small companies, no, you are mentioning.
Yeah, I mean, I learned so much in those 17 years of doing that, but also was operations as well. So I had quite a hybrid of things. And I left to become a travel manager, and I managed global travel expense, meetings, card. I had everything. Did that, and then went back to Amex and said, all right, I now know that side of the house, and now I want to do something different within the organization. And was there until I left to go to Reardon Commerce, if you've heard of that. It's called Deem now. It's an online booking tool, a competitor of GetThere back in the day. So left there and spent almost 10 years there. And that's where I saw the side of how do you build this? How do you build this technology, and working with engineering and product? But ultimately, my role was sales there. And then spent a little time at Travelport as a GDS. That was fascinating, that whole side of the business. And then have been here for about a year and a half. And why did I come here? Well, the people, number one. Meeting Dan, meeting Bruce, looking at what was on the horizon and knowing that they could do it. And collectively, we could do it together, right? We could build something really special. And I'm a builder, Javier. That's what I do. I wanted to build an incredible team to go out and really change this industry, because hotel sourcing is not talked about a lot. It should be, because it's incredibly broken the way it's done today. So I have the pleasure of being in front of customers, prospects. So I hear this all day long about what we're doing is so important, and it's really changing how people perceive how they source their hotels, right? We're taking some of the old legacy thoughts and processes out and saying, there's a better way. There's a better way to do it. So that's why I'm here.
Good. So the next question should be, what's the problem that BTP automation is solving, and how it is solving that problem?
Bruce, you want to take that one?
Sure. Well, hotel sourcing is a very cumbersome very expensive, and a very resource intense process. And just, I don't want to be kind of remedial or redundant for you because you probably know a lot of this, but I use this example a lot. Like if you're Texas Instruments, you're generally flying out of Dallas, you've got 4 or 5 airline deals, for sure American Airlines, maybe British Airways, and some regional carriers. And those have to be negotiated, right? You want to get your corporate rate, but you probably have 500 hotels in a program. And each one of those hotels needs to be negotiated. Even if you're working with Marriott and you're negotiating 30 or 40 at a time, each one of them needs to be negotiated. And that negotiation process is completely antiquated. And, it was really designed around 30-year-old, like the fax, 30-year-old technology or something. And so it's basically a spreadsheet that has, 700 fields that a corporate travel manager fills out. They use a tool, whether it's an existing tool like a Lanyon and then they drive that off to the hotel. But then they're using bad data in order to manage that negotiation, right? So they've got a ream of data. It's coming from expense reports. It's coming from the GDS, like old booking data. They're trying to aggregate that, analyze it, and then make a decision on what kind of price they want to pay at a hotel a year from now. So not even taking into consideration what a local market condition might be or how things may change in a year. And so then they deliver this thing to a hotel, and then they have to manage the communication and the negotiation, the back and forth, the chasing the hotel to get them to respond in the first place. Coming out of COVID, everybody's resource constrained. So hotels that used to have a sales manager and a revenue manager, like for each hotel, now they've got sales manager and revenue managers that are trying to manage 8-10 properties. And so they're all overburdened. And basically and this is an annual sourcing, exercise. So they do it once a year, but that once a year is a 3 or a 4 month process. And it takes multiple people inside an organization to negotiate 400 or 500 hotels. So it is very expensive, very cumbersome, and really labor intensive. So that's kind of the problem, at a 30,000 foot level. And what BTP does is, first of all, we are a data analytics and an automation company. And we've built the first real-time intelligent hotel sourcing engine. And so what we do is when we work with a customer, we pour their historical data into our analytics engine, which is a very robust AI set of algorithms that I think there's over 1,000 algorithms that all that data goes through. We'll pour their expense data in there. Anything that they have that has historical information about their booking, their hotel program. That information that engine spits out a set of actions that a company can take. And those actions can be something like, first of all, so that's how we do our first analysis of their program. But then we have live GDS feeds. So we're completely agnostic with Sabre, Travelport, WorldSpan, Amadeus, doesn't matter. And we get live data all day, every day from a company. Every record, we see every record. We audit that record to make sure that it's accurate so that it's in compliance with what their policy dictates. So we look and make sure that they're getting the rate that they're entitled to at a specific property. But we also get very granular. Like we look to make sure that all the amenities that they've negotiated in that program are also being given to them but we also do things like this. So that's just one thing. And we do that, and we'll if we see an error or we see an opportunity, we'll drive that reservation back to the appropriate booking authority so that they can rebook it, they can save money right up front. So it's actionable data, real-time actionable data. That's almost the simplest thing we do. What we do on top of that is, and there's kind of a big finale here, but what we do on top of that is, like, if we see a burst of traffic in a given market, like let's say you're Amazon and you're opening up a warehouse, or you're doing something in Chicopee, Massachusetts, and you've never traveled there before, we will immediately research, kind of benchmark a local market. We will generate an RFP, so a new proposal. We'll deliver those out to the hotels in that market. We'll manage the negotiation digitally, so no human intervention, especially on the corporation side. So on the buyer side, it is completely seamless. Then we'll audit the rate to make sure it's loaded in the GDS. We'll put the hotel back in the corporate hotel program, and the corporate travel manager can be working on something that's more productive, rather than going back and forth with the hotel to check and see if their rate is, has been loaded and the negotiation is complete. And all of that, which I just discussed, is completely automated. And it is not an annual program. So we like to say that when a corporation turns over their hotel program to BTP, they can just take their hands off the wheel, and we steer from there on. And it's like an autopilot in an airplane. It just makes small adjustments all day, every day, to get from point A to point B in the most cost-effective and efficient way possible. And because we are real-time intelligence sourcing, it's just an ongoing process. So and what I mean by that is, it's no longer a big annual sourcing program where they have to stop everything they're doing in July and spend 4 months building a program. Because once a program is up and running with us, it just continues to run all the time. And so and kind of an example for that is, like, let's say you have a negotiated rate, it's $200 at the Hilton in New York. Well, there's a big hurricane coming up the East Coast, and the rates have all dropped at all the hotels, and the $200 corporate rate is no longer competitive. Since we look at local market conditions all day, every day, we will send the hotel a renegotiation so that the corporation is benefiting from the lower kind of market rate in that given area, without having to send, excuse me, without having to do a bunch of work on their end, right? We do that for them. And so it keeps them operating as efficiently as possible all the time, without them having to think about it. So it is a fully automated, intelligent sourcing engine that companies that are using it today are averaging anywhere from 10 to 14% savings on their total hotel spend, which is really significant. I mean, some companies spend $1 million on hotels, and some spend 200 million. So when you start talking about 10 to 14% to the bottom line on that kind of spend, it's significant.
It's
Does that make sense? Everything
makes total sense. Well,
Yeah.
there are several questions that arises. The first one, I will address this to Annette, taking into consideration her past experience in Amex, is your relationship with TMCs, because I think you are eating their cake.
Well, travel management companies are core to everything we do, because they're a part of every engagement we have with customers. What I found in my initial time here, in just talking to everybody when I first came, was travel management companies, to your point, do a lot of sourcing for their customers. They want that, right? It's a service for them. So we actually quickly identified that we have two types of customers here at BTP. We have customers who want to control the sourcing process, and so they contract with us directly, and they are the user of the product. But we also contract with TMCs directly as well. So for example, we're launching a travel management company over the next 60 days that will bring all 800 of their customers into our product.
So you are, as you said, you are also partnering with TMCs that are
Absolutely.
benefiting from your technology in order
Absolutely.
to provide a better service to their own clients. So that's a
Yes.
very good idea.
Yeah. I like to call it, you know, in TMC lingo, they have kind of mid-office systems and back office systems, right, that help them run their business. We are that for them, right? We're not traveler facing. We're not in that capacity. We're not facing any customer. We are there for them. It is their tool for their teams to use to efficiently source and also monitor the compliance that Bruce spoke about. So yeah, our goal is to help them just be more efficient because they're challenged with resources as well. And yeah, they might have a sourcing team that's their only job, but I'll tell you, they're doing a lot of manual work, and there are other things I'm sure that they could do that, you know, by using us, they can do that and save them some time.
Not really how they make their money. So this is
Yeah.
a, you know, and I think it's important, Javier, to understand that for BTP, we take a very holistic view of the industry, right? You have the buyer, you have the supplier, and then you have the TMC as the intermediary. And our goal is to provide value to everybody in that chain, right? And not do the carve out of the TMC, or, you know, we're going to go direct so the GDS doesn't have a role, or there are entities that they're not going anywhere for a long time. And so if you can provide a value to everybody in that kind of value chain, then I think you really have something. And so that's our goal.
Mhm. I guess you are very US centric, because you have been mentioning very often that the GDS are one of the main sources to operate with the hotels. And as you know, in Europe, that's actually not the most common way to have access to all the best fares, availabilities, etc. With the bed banks playing a leading role, etc. No? So that my question is, your model is perfectly applicable to the States. How you should tweak it a little bit to extend your geographical footprint, or actually it's so large, the US market, that you are not considering now to try to go to other markets?
Well, we don't really put any geographic boundaries on what we do. Most of our companies have a lot of international travel, you know, whether they're based in Europe or not. But we have companies in Asia Pac. We have companies based in Europe today that are using the product. You know, for the most part, hotel sourcing is hotel sourcing is hotel sourcing. You know, corporations are global. You know, I guess our bread and butter today are US based corporations, because that's for lack of a better term, that's the low hanging fruit for us. But again, we don't have any geographic specificity to the product. It'll work on all GDSs in all time zones. So
on the content piece, it's been interesting. We did launch a customer at the end of last year that was sourcing in 130 global markets. So that was our first big global deployment, and it was very interesting. This was a customer who had very traditional GDS data, but also did use out of GDS content. To your point, in Europe, that is more common, where they don't participate in the GDS. So in their approach, what they looked at was that non-GDS content was more periphery to their core program. They were less concerned of sourcing that because it was so discounted to begin with. They didn't look at it as, I've got to go now send an RFP to this hotel because it's I don't think I can get a better rate. It's through sources like booking.com and other ancillary hotel content. Now we have a partnership with Traxo, and Traxo can bring content in for anything that wasn't booked in the GDS. So a Hyatt.com, Hilton.com, a boutique hotel in a European market that doesn't participate. We can bring that in through our partnership with Traxo. And then it just creates a really nice picture of what I have kind of outside of program, we'll call it, and what's being done through my travel management company.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because it's not just a question of not participating in the GDS distribution. But the point is that, as you perfectly know, in some cases, especially bed banks have negotiated fares that are not available at the GDS. So if you're, and all depends, especially if you're a European-based company and your most of your domestic traffic is focus on 3, 4, 5 different European cities. That means that in most of these cities, you don't have what you have in the States. Companies like Marriott or other large hotel chains, whose footprint is amazing. No, you know that in Europe and in APAC is similar. You don't have these large hotel suppliers that can give you an answer. So more than 70% of the hotels in EMEA are independent hotels. And actually, obviously, GDS are controlling the flight distribution, that they are not there yet when we talk about hotels. No? So I think that what you have mentioned about your partnership with Traxo and another, I'm pretty sure, and other ideas that you have in mind will help you to improve the content of your value proposition. But Bruce mentioned before that at the end of the day, a company doesn't need to have access at hotels in 2,000 different cities in the world, because non-company is actually flying to moving the employees to so many different places. So at the end, it's a famous Pareto rule, no? 80-20, 20-80-80-20. So if you are really capable to save money for your clients in these cities, and that's it, and saving money in what many people doesn't understand, all the monkey hands that you have in your organization deploying at least 4 months a year of their time doing this in an old-fashioned way with a spreadsheet and repeating. In my old days, I came from the tour operating business, and with our summer season and winter season, so we have two seasons a year in which we have to negotiate with all the hotels, and we have to repeat once and every time the same process, and it's manually in our system, the availability data, all the characteristics. The old days, there's one room, 25 different characteristics, regimes, etc. So at the end of the day, you have more than 300 different prices for just one day, and one room in one hotel.
So you're painfully familiar with, you know.
This nation is you're solving a real problem that it's obviously is not so well known by the current traveler, because it tends to think that everything is so easy. It's all on the internet. So All knows what internet is, but it's all on the internet.
Yeah, that's pretty typical. Yeah.
And depending on the customer we're working with, some are really just trying to, from a duty of care, visibility, trying to keep all those travelers to at least use their agency, right? Because they need to report on this. And if they're off doing whatever, it makes it very difficult. So in particular, this one customer said, I know I've got a booking.com agreement, but I'm not worried about that right now. Because I don't want people using that. I don't actually want to try to RFP that content. I want to focus on what my agency can support, so my travelers see those rates and they use my travel management company. So it can be also the approach of the buyer.
Yeah.
And what companies, what travel players do you consider are your competitors or your enemies or friend enemies?
Well, the biggest one out there is Lanyon. So Lanyon, has about 70% of the market. They've just been around longer. But we did see just in the last couple of weeks, two competitors sunset their products, Sabre RFP and Lodging Logistics. They just made a decision not to make the investment to keep up with the tech, because it's where we are as a company is so far ahead of what they were doing in a very kind of almost rudimentary fashion that they would have to make a significant investment to stay current, and they've just decided not to do that. So really our big competitor is Lanyon. And I'll also say our big competitor is legacy travel thinking. Like if we can get, well, you've been in this game long enough too. I mean, you have to change the way people think about what it is they're doing, because oftentimes they don't understand the process is broken until you really show them that it's broken, right? And so that I consider that a competitor, but from a company standpoint, it's Lanyon is our biggest competitor.
You have referred to this legacy thinking. Don't you think that one of the few good things that the pandemic has brought to the business travel is the need to rely more on data and the request for the top management for database decisions and controlling the spend, but not just the old way. Say we have to cut travel expenses by 20%. So you just cut all the expenses without any kind of rationale. So probably your technology will be benefit by this new need of applying technology science to the decisions.
Yeah, 100%, Javier. I mean, coming out of 2020, 2021, it changed the way people think about what programs they're implementing, what technology they're using, what the downstream benefit is. It hurt everybody so much financially that, 2019 was such a banner year. Money was flowing everywhere and companies were spending money, and global corporate hotel spend was $400 billion. And then it became, just like you said, right? Hey, we need to start controlling costs, and what they want to do is control costs without diminishing the services that they're providing or the stewardship they're providing for their traveling population. And so what they need is technologies like ours that do that, manage compliance better, give them better awareness of where their people are and when, so if they can move them through a compliant channel versus the person that books on Priceline and they don't even know about it until the expense report comes in 30 days later. That's all part of an effective and efficient technology that not only helps with compliance, but saves money. And, that's what we're all about.
You're part of the cohort of Plug and Play. And
yeah.
I guess that it was an excuse to come back to Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
I know you like that area. But my question is, why did you choose Plug and Play as accelerator? Well, I think the answer is easy. It's one of the best accelerators in the world, and it's incredibly focused on travel. But I will ask you to elaborate on that. And the second part of the question is what you have received. So what are the benefits, the tangible benefits that you can share with us about this participation in Plug and Play?
Yeah, so we applied for the accelerator, and we were kind of asked to apply because they liked what we were doing. And then over the hundreds of companies that applied, 10 were chosen, and we were one of them. So, so it's, it's an honor to be part of the cohort that we're in today. It is a very, very well-run accelerator. They have done an amazing job of facilitating several things. One is meetings with corporate partners that are relevant to us, like hotel partners, TMC partners, people that that would take us longer to get a meeting on our own, right? That have said, we really like what you guys are doing. Let's have a meeting outside of the accelerator, have a sit down and really talk about what it is you're doing. So that's been super beneficial for us and has brought us customers. It's also, to be honest, we are fairly well polished in our investor pitch, and we've raised quite a bit of capital now. Not quite a bit, but several $1 million in capital, and our pitch is pretty good. But we have really productive workshops with them that talk about and kind of educate on, because probably, as fundraising today is different than it was when I founded GetThere back in the 90s. Right? It's much different. Back then you went right to a Series A. you did an equity round right out of the chute. Now there's a pre-seed and a seed, and there's work your way up to a Series A, and it is a different fundraising environment. So it's,
and after the Silicon Valley Bank collapse, it's even harder.
Yeah.
The situation has gotten tougher, and now I think it's good in that sense that track record and real economics data of the companies are more taken into consideration than just simply perspective of future growth, etc. So that's for companies actually based on real business. It's the environment's a little bit better because there is less noise.
Yeah, it's weeded out some of the chaff, right? Like the if you're building a business on smoke and mirrors, adios. It doesn't work, right? At BTP, one of the things that we've said from the very beginning is that our goal is to build a successful business that generates a lot of revenue and can stand on its own, right? We don't need a big acquisition. We don't need a big corporate partner to dump a bunch of money in and have it be a sinkhole that they keep funding for a number of years. Our job is to get to profitability as quickly as possible. And, we are on a very, very steep ramp from a revenue standpoint, and a relatively short time to cash flow break even. And, a lot of our time with Plug and Play has been, in validating what we're doing and how we're doing it. There are some other things going on that we can't mention yet with Plug and Play, but there'll be some good announcements in the not too distant future. But they've been I have been wildly impressed with the way that they've run the accelerator program and the quality of the potential partners that they've put in front of the companies that are in this cohort. So yeah, very, very, very happy to be a part of it. Yeah.
You have talked about the revenue, and my next question would be, what are your business models? So how do you charge your clients? You obviously you're a B2B, but you are intending to be more a SaaS model. You have a hybrid model. So if you could share that, it would be interesting to know a little bit better how you are envisioning the way you are securing your revenue.
Yeah, Annette, you want to take that one since you are the queen of revenue of the company?
Yes. So first, we do have a flexible model in terms of transactional or subscription. You know, I think that's important in our industry to have options. Our pricing is based off of the amount of services that are consumed within the platform. And within that, there's sourcing, there's auditing, there's hotel chasing, we like to call it. There's the compliance aspect of it. So when each customer, we look at their program and what their objectives are and kind of what they just have to get done, right, to make sure that their program is staying up to date, and that's, we price it accordingly. But we like using that model, Javier, because it outlines candidly where we're different, because we offer some services no one else does. So by looking at that from a cost model, it highlights, and a hotel or excuse me, a customer could look at that and say, all right, there's a dollar figure on you doing this for me. I'll pay that, right? Because it is worth that amount of money that I don't have to go do that. So it is subscription based, right? And we lock people in, but breaking it down has been really successful so that people can kind of correlate the value we bring.
That's really interesting. Last question. Think that we are now in 2024, June 2024. How would you like your company to be at that time?
Profitable, number one, which we will
like
be.
that.
Yeah. We see a future for BTP where we have created fully a two-sided marketplace where we are supporting not just the buying side of the equation, whether that's a TMC or the corporation, but that we are actually supporting the supplier side, because there is an opportunity to build additional efficiency into this transaction, right? We've already fully automated through actionable data the delivery of a proposal to a supplier. Now, if we take that and flip it 180 degrees and we do the math on the supplier side, we should be able to fully automate the response capability so that we just have very efficient machines talking to each other and managing the negotiation based on a set of algorithms that determines the weighting associated with a customer because of who they are, the volume thresholds that they're looking for, the percentage of commission that they will or won't pay. So when we have all those variables, because it's just as burdensome for, let's say, IHG or Marriott or somebody to receive 50,000 RFPs or 25,000. I mean, they have a room full of people that just sits there and does all day long responding to RFPs. So we see in the not too distant future a fully two-sided marketplace where we've built an amazingly efficient system that talks to each other and just unburdens both sides from the manual RFP process.
Okay. Sounds really interesting and promising. I am pretty sure that with the experience that you have and with the experience as well of Dan and the rest of the team, there are a lot of chances that in June 2024 we'll have another interview there. I'm pretty sure that it will be the time in which you will be explaining all the success that you have achieved and how you are helping to revolutionize that part of the business that is not so sexy. It's one of the unfortunate things that business travel has. It's not sexy. It's incredibly huge and profitable, but it's not sexy. People like to pay attention to activities, things to do, and even now, vacation rental is short-term rental. It's sexier, but you know the data our data and the billions and billions that involved in business travel and hotel sourcing for corporates, etc., is amazing. And being capable to improve the performance and the efficiency of that part of the travel industry is amazing. And you mentioned how different the travel industry is now compared to 30 years ago, though you helped to change the rules, because one of the theoretical axioms was that only large companies can success, and
Right.
you were capable to change the game with a small company.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's even easier. So many disrupting startups can change the rules. So in your case, with your past experience with this team, I think that you are born to repeat the success, and
Well,
we will
thank
be
you.
glad to give you voice in that process. So,
Well, thank you.
Annette, Bruce, Annette, thanks a lot for your time and for sharing with us what you are doing, which is incredibly interesting. And I wish you all the best in your project.
No, thank you, Javier. So same time next year, and we'll have a whole new story.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you, Javier.
Thank you very much for your time.
Travelthink is a non-profit initiative launched and managed by Dr. Javier Gonzalez-Soria in 2006, focused on new trends, innovation, and startups in the travel tech space. Thousands of professionals receive the Travelthink news, where travel top leaders and entrepreneurs share their insights and reflections.